The power of his dream brings you here, his man, Sean Carlard.
The touch point for today coming from the STAND course. So let's start off with the process of how to deal with trauma. We are going to go through the word trauma.
Absolutely.
So the TRAUMA, and this was on you. You sat down, a friend of yours spent time with you, and you went, that's brilliant, and this is how the process works. So
Absolutely.
Guys, you take the word trauma, and we start off with a T, and what do we do with the T?
So the first thing that you have to do is take a moment and sit and identify your trauma.
So what is the trauma?
Yes, because we've all had a lot of trauma,
Yes.
different kinds of trauma.
Well, what is trauma in the first place?
Well, it's an injury resulting from a mental or emotional stress or physical injury.
So loss of a parent, having an accident and breaking an arm, that's trauma. A fright from a spider,
That's trauma.
that's trauma. Attack from a dog.
Yeah.
A trauma is an injury, mental, emotional, or physical.
And the thing is, Sean, is that you and I can be going through the very same thing.
Yeah.
But it could be more traumatic for you than it is for me, that specific one thing.
And that's why perspectives are very important.
That's right.
Because for you, when it comes to pain and that, you can endure it because you've had so many operations. When it comes to me, I can't. I just haven't had that experience to be able to endure it. So we can never discount a person's trauma. If we're comparing trauma against trauma, it's very unfair because it's always for that person
Absolutely.
at that moment in time in those circumstances. So we just want to let you know we see you and we also see your trauma. Now that you know what trauma is, pick a trauma that you can identify with. When we're doing the course face-to-face, we actually get you on a little note to write down your trauma. Nobody sees it. It's a very safe place. What we do is we use a young girl who was sexually abused by her grandfather. We use that as a go-to because we can prove it. So trauma happens to us, which changes what is in us, and the result is what comes out of us.
And the thing is that when you identify your trauma, it is truly the beginning. We avoid it. I went through this process myself. The minute I identified what was the actual trauma that I went through, not just the act of the thing that happened, but the trauma that happened in me and over time in me and how it worked out in me. My goodness, when I saw that, I became angry at what was stolen from me. It is so important to identify.
And we need to also understand that identifying trauma can actually cause trauma.
Yes, absolutely.
So we did have one instance where a person found the solution as to why they were acting really bizarre. It really set them free and they had a really big aha moment. And that behavior in their life changed completely. But they went back onto cocaine. Because why? They realized how many lives they had destroyed.
Yeah.
Even though they found a justification and, oh my gosh, that's why I did it, they were just so traumatized as to how many lives they messed up. So trauma can actually trigger more trauma. That's why it's very, very important to understand what trauma is, identify it, but you have to complete the process.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't complete the process, you're going to go back to the life of violence.
You'll be more traumatized.
Yeah. Now that we say, what is trauma? And we now go, oh, wait, hold on a second. That was actually traumatic. We had a father and a son. Father's very old. The son also very old. And they hate each other. And they go and sit and try and figure out what the cause of this hatred towards one another. Father couldn't understand, but the son, when he was really young, went to the father and the brother who was working on a car, and they asked him to pick up a spanner, and it was electrified. And as he touched it, he got a massive shock, and the brother and the father laughed at him, and he was rejected.
Closed
He
his
was
heart.
broken, and we're going to go into what was really taken. And that created so much anger in him. And when he shared the story with his father, he's like, oh my gosh, it was just a joke. I never knew.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But should the father have had this information, would have gone, I've just caused trauma. And we need to process it now. Trauma actually does cause us to seek something. What is it?
Comfort.
We do, eh?
Yeah, we do.
So this is an absolute fact that trauma causes a need for comfort. Comfort with things that numb the pain. As tablets are to pain, so is
Comfort to trauma.
very important.
Sean, so let's just continue with this journey.
The power of his dream brings you here. His man, Sean Carlard.